All right. We are back. Movement Athlete Podcast, episode 2. And before we get into it, I just want to say John and myself were both slightly overwhelmed by the amount of positive feedback we got on episode 1. The comments, the messages, definitely keep them coming. It was awesome, guys. And it's the internet. There were definitely a few negative comments. For you individuals, you guys suck. So now on to episode 2. This episode, we actually dive into my story. And you know what? We're just going to get into it. So episode 2.
Actually, we'll be interviewing as a team.
You are the best movers on the planet. So, bro, what kind of muscles you have? No. Bro, what kind of patterns you have?
We're here to fuck shit up.
All right, we're back at it. Episode 2, The Movement Athlete. I'm Dr. Wes Hendricks, and I'm here with
John Lindsay.
And it looks like I'm going to be the guest on this podcast. John's going to be interviewing me, so I'm in the hot seat.
Yeah, so excited to ask the doctor a couple questions. Let's get it started with, so tell us, you're obviously a doctor of what?
It's a good question. I'm a doctor of chiropractics. So I'm a chiropractor. I've been a chiropractor now for 5-6 years. So yeah, I've been a chiropractor for 6 years now.
So what led you to go to chiropractic school? What was the intrigue back in the day? What's the origin story there that took you to chiropractic school?
So when I was in undergrad, I didn't even want to go to undergrad, actually. My parents made me go to college. So when I was in college, I got a degree in exercise science. And towards the end of school...
Where'd you go to undergrad again? I know it was somewhere northeast.
So I went to college at Plymouth State in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And I specifically went so I could snowboard. So back in the day, we didn't have Google Map or anything. This is like we're going to...
MapQuest.
Yeah, so yep, I used MapQuest. This is like 2000...
Printed it out.
Yep, this is like 2000 and... I graduated high school in 2005, so I went to college in 2006. So when my parents were like, you're going to college, you don't have a choice, I just started looking at where there were ski resorts in relation to universities, and I started MapQuesting the distance. And this was one of the schools that meet my criteria of, a 10-minute drive to the mountains. So I was getting over 100 days of snowboarding every year.
Wow.
In going to the school. So that was the only reason, or that's how I picked the school. I never visited or anything. Literally based upon MapQuest, no Google Maps. But anyway, towards the end of your college career, you start to get into some pretty specific courses, where being in the exercise science program, you're working with a lot of people in person, and then it's more practical information. And the thing that the recurring theme that always showed up was you didn't really know what to do if somebody got injured or hurt, or if somebody had a limitation, or if their primary care physician told them, I can't do XYZ because my doctor said this, or, I can't do ABC because, I'm hurt. And I felt a little helpless that I didn't understand the depth of the injury. And, I thought, without knowing, there has to be a way to work around it. There's got to be some way, if I had enough understanding of the injury, I could come up with exercises to train around this injury, as opposed to just saying, I can't work out, or I can't train, or I have to do lower body, or I have to do some really regressed variation. And I just didn't like that answer. So I wanted to be the authority or have enough knowledge to be able to say, hey, you can train around this. It's not a big deal. We shouldn't be scared of this. So that led me to becoming a chiropractor.
Cool. Was there an injury you personally sustained, or something you saw from a friend or someone that kind of is the basis of that story, where you were like, I want to train around injury, or I want this person to train around injury?
There wasn't one person in particular. It was just this thing that it was just a recurring theme that started showing up over and over again. I just got to the point where I was just kind of like, this is bullshit. I need a better solution than just saying I can't address this because your doctor said, you can't work out, when the doctor doesn't even have, their PCP doesn't have any understanding of training, exercise selection, varying, the tempo, set rep scheme. There's so many different ways you can manipulate an exercise so you can still train around an injury. And they had no understanding of it. So they just said, don't exercise. That's like being like, just don't drink water, or just don't eat for a while if your stomach hurts. And I chose chiropractics just because I had always seen chiropractors growing up. Because people always ask me why I didn't become a physical therapist or something else. And it was just really, I'd always gone to chiropractors. They kind of seemed, it was kind of like, more or less like your nursing story. I'd seen chiropractors. It seemed like they had a pretty good job. They hung out all day. At the time, if you typed into Ask Jeeves or whatever the search engine was, because it wasn't Google, what their salary was. Yeah. Like, it had a pretty good salary if they were successful. My chiropractor seemed like he just hung out all day. His hours were like 9 to 12.
Little snap, crackle, pop.
Yeah, exactly.
Lunch and then...
Obviously a little more than that, but I was like, oh, this sounds like a cool job. Once again, if I have to have a job, why don't I go with this one? So that's kind of how it started, or where it spawned from.
Yeah, I think any job like that, like essentially really any like sort of more medical-y profession, just sounds more enticing to people like us, because it's, I'm not behind a computer all day. That sounds like
you're not sitting at a
I
desk.
can do that.
You're
like the
doing
thought of
something.
Just being sedentary for an extended period of time just sounds so overwhelming and terrible that I can't imagine you doing that. Like, I can't picture you suit and tie at a desk. I mean, it just doesn't seem to suit your personality. So I totally get that. So what was your snowboarding in college? What was your training like then? Because I know you've always been into like some sort of physical practice. You've always had some sort of training that you were working on. What was the 21-22 undergrad Wes Hendricks like?
So it was probably, like you said, I always enjoyed training. I just enjoyed the process of it. I liked, in high school, I played football because I liked the working out all summer with the team. Come football season, I was like, this sucks. I don't like this. But I enjoyed the preseason working out. Then going into the winter, I enjoyed working out with the wrestling team, but I wasn't on the wrestling team. So I just liked the process of that. So starting into college, I basically just cherry picked all the workouts that we did, at the wrestling practice, for example. So I did a lot of hill sprints. I'm doing a lot of Olympic lifting. I'm doing different body weight exercises. And then I discovered this thing. So we're in 2007, 2008 now, this thing called CrossFit. You might have heard of it.
I've heard of it.
And basically what I was doing already was basically CrossFit, but now somebody had combined all these movements, put
a name on it.
Yeah, put a name on it, put standards on it, packaged it a little nicer and neater. So around that time, I was doing CrossFit.
Cool. So you graduated from undergrad, you're obviously on to chiropractic school, and you're doing CrossFit. Did the two ever blend together? Did CrossFit, chiropractic work maybe after you graduated? Was there any, because obviously to me they kind of go hand in hand, or there's got to be some overlap there. Yep. Where you're maybe training people from a CrossFit standpoint, and you're also working with clients and patients from a chiropractic standpoint. Where was the blend of that? So actually my first job when I moved to Boston, it was in a CrossFit gym. There was a chiropractic or sports therapy practice inside of a CrossFit gym. It used to be Reebok CrossFit Back Bay. Now it's CrossFit Invictus. But my first job was there. So I was working in a CrossFit gym, and I split my time between coaching classes because I was also a coach. But then I would also treat patients in the clinic, and I did that 7 days a week for I don't know how many years until I moved. So yeah, they blended together very nicely. And my day went, between training clients, taking a class, coaching a class, running the locker room, change, try to look a little more professional, go treat a patient, maybe have a couple patients. Shirt on.
Yeah, exactly. I had nice clothes then. Back into the locker room, change back into gym clothes, maybe train a few clients, back into the office, treat a few patients. And I just was running back and forth between that all day long. And they really kind of blend. They they blended simultaneously, like they blended very nicely. And honestly, outside of my attire that I was wearing, there was sometimes you couldn't even tell if I was working with a one-on-one training client or if it was a patient. Obviously, you could tell when I'm teaching a class, but I think they went hand in hand pretty well.
That's awesome. That sounds like a perfect day too. Just on your feet. I love days like that where you're going from one client to the next. The day just kind of flies by, and you've been so active yourself all day, and you're just sharing awesome information with patients from a chiropractic standpoint and clients with on a CrossFit standpoint. I think if anyone is even just a general personal trainer out there, I think just having busy days is a great way to just get better and better at your craft.
It was a lot of fun. It made the day go by quickly. And honestly, in Boston too, the people I was working with, it's not like I was working with like high level athletes by any means. Like I was working, the majority of all my training clients were, 50, 55, 60 plus, extremely out of shape, but they were very determined and very interesting. Like these are very successful people that have extremely high paying jobs. So they need to keep themselves in like tip top shape, almost the way like a professional athlete would. So they were taking their health very seriously. So it was a very easy sell to them. They cared, they showed up, it didn't matter. And that got me fired up too. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to train these people, and I'd be at the gym sometimes till 9 p.m. training these people because they have, very spontaneous, I was very accommodating to their schedules, but they were excited to be there. They wanted to be there. I was enforcing them. So it made those long days where you're going back and forth all day long. It was fun. It was a lot of fun actually.
Yeah, it's an ideal client. If the client's bringing the energy and you don't need to be the one who's like really trying to just amp everybody up.
Trying to sell them on it or something.
Yeah, I know that's definitely not my personality, and I'm assuming that's probably not yours either.
I'm not a motivational person.
You're working with people that are gung ho about it. That's just such a perfect client.
Oh, absolutely.
They're gonna trust your word like gospel, which is huge. So I know at some point you got out of CrossFit, but before we get there, what was your favorite CrossFit WOD?
Oh, that's a good question. What was my favorite CrossFit?
Or what is? Maybe it still is.
It would definitely be something different now. What was? Oh man, no one's ever asked me that.
I just thought of it. I don't know how.
That's genius, especially because it's not like you really did CrossFit. There was one, I can't think of the name of it now, which is even worse. It was 21:15.9 of power cleans at 135 and ring dips.
Is that Fran?
No, it's not Fran. I can tell you definitively it's not Fran. Very a similar rep scheme. What is it? But that was a favorite of mine. But honestly, anything with, body weight exercises. I was a really good runner, jump rope, burpees, anything with burpees. I remember one year in the CrossFit Open, there was 7 minutes of burpees to a 6-inch target overhead. Yep, I did, I think 140, and that was definitely top. I was under top 200 in the world. So
what do you think you could do now?
I would give up after about 7 seconds. I would be like,
once the form breaks down, you're out.
I don't have the willpower to do that anymore. Definitely not that many. But anything, that favored me was always fun.
Nice. So obviously you have a different practice now. I think anyone listening to this probably knows that. When did your practice shift from CrossFit to more of, for lack of a better word, this more movement, strength, bodyweight strength, mobility oriented practice begin?
So I actually had a pretty bad back injury deadlifting. I was just doing deadlifts one day, maybe 50, 60% of my 1RM, and they were singles off the floor. So they were supposed to be fast. So you pull a fast single, drop the weight, pull a fast single, drop the weight. And one of them, and the way I was doing it in a manner that kind of was more conducive to CrossFit, where you grab the bar and go. So if you were to transition between exercises, you're coming from the pull-up bar, you go to the barbell, you grab it quickly. So I was trying to also train my transitions, because at this point in time I was still.
How do you train the transition? Is that just?
So if I got off the pull-up
faster to the
kind of. So if I was finishing a set of pull-ups and walking to the barbell, some people, if you ever watch people on Instagram, they've got a really elaborate deadlift setup, where they grab the bar, or maybe they stand over the bar for 30 seconds, set their feet, set their hands, yeah, exactly. Like John and I are making all these funny positions. Same thing with Olympic lifting. You sit there, you really prepare yourself as opposed to just grabbing the bar and go. So I was working on that where I drop the bar and then I immediately grab it and be comfortable to pick it back up again really quickly with like all those points of performance taken into consideration. And one of the times I grabbed the bar, and my guess would be the barbell went a little far out in front of me, so a little further away from my center of mass. And generally when that bar drifts away from you, you have less leverage. You have more increased risk for injury. So something happened. It was a perfect storm. My back didn't like it. I immediately went into spasm. And it was pretty painful. And it just continued to get worse over about the next 2 hours. Like I remember standing up with the deadlift, dropping it and thinking, oh shit, I just did something. But it wasn't like this immediate thing. It was starting, it's getting a little tighter. It's getting a little tighter. This isn't good. I went into the office. I started talking it out with one of the physical therapists. And I still had to walk home even. And I lived, maybe a mile away. Two-thirds of the walk in, I could barely even stand up straight. I was kind of hunched over. I know I've told this story before, but I was hunched over. And at one point, I almost fell over on the walk home. I was in so much pain because it was in such an intense spasm. That an old guy actually passed me on the sidewalk. And if you've ever seen the movie Up,
that guy,
yeah, Mr. Fredrickson from Up actually passed me on the sidewalk. So that's when I knew I was
celebrity sick.
Yeah, so I was like, oh shit, this isn't good. So yeah, that was the point when I was like, this isn't good. So that was kind of the start of the injury. It went on for about 2 weeks.
Building green pain from the...
Oh,
God.
The first week.
So no training during 2 weeks?
No training. I didn't even leave my house for the first week.
What was more painful, not training or the actual pain from the...
Oh, the actual pain. I didn't even think about it.
Wow. Okay.
Dude, so I've dislocated my elbow before. I would rather dislocate my elbow again than experience this pain that I had in my back.
Wow. That's a wake-up call.
Like by the time I got home, I could barely move. Transitioning on or off the couch from sitting to standing was like the most painful experience. My back would go into spasm in different points throughout that transition that I couldn't even move. At the time, the girl I was dating was away on a trip. She actually flew home early to try to take care of me. My dog, that night, at the same time, my dog had some sort of food poisoning, so he had to go out like every hour to shit. I tried to like tell him just to shit in the kitchen, like just go. I can't even get off the couch. Wouldn't do it. Trained him that well. Won't shit in the house.
What a good day.
Yeah, yeah, or not. But like it was just that excruciating. I had, I canceled the next, I think, week's worth of patients. So I didn't see any patients. I didn't see any training clients for a week. I canceled every class that I was supposed to coach. And I didn't leave the couch for a week.
Wow.
It was like that pain. Like when I was on the couch and I had to like pee, there was like a doubt in my mind. Do I want to pee or do I want to try to hold this longer? Because I know the process of getting the 10 feet to, not 10 feet, 50 feet to
the pain associated with this task.
Isn't worth it.
Piss my pants.
Yeah. I never pissed my pants, luckily. But to get up and get to the bathroom was that painful and that.
If Amazon was efficient then as it is now,
yeah.
I picture you just ordering diapers from the
I would probably order diapers. That's not out of the realm of possibilities. But it was that excruciating and that painful that I was stuck on. And then I probably didn't train for close to a month.
Wow. That sounds terrible. So you've at least slowly recovered. It's that month later when you're starting to train again. What's the first thing you're doing? Are you...
So during the time on the couch, I did a lot of, towards the end when I'm starting to feel better and I'm starting to think like, okay, I can train again. What the fuck am I going to do? Because I'm still not going to even be lifting heavy weights again, even if I want to, even if I have the desire to. But I really
Your
didn't.
subconscious, I don't think would allow you to.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And I really didn't have any interest. And this is the thing I always talk about with people. I used to be very competitive in CrossFit. I enjoyed it. It was a part of my identity. When I hurt myself deadlifting, I was still training to try to compete in CrossFit. But I no longer, and it was part of my identity, but I was trying to maintain that identity, but it wasn't who I was anymore.
Yeah.
So like that's the thing that really ate me up inside.
Especially you're working in a CrossFit gym.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's tough.
So yeah, and like like Wes, Dr. Wes was like kind of good at CrossFit. You should see him. Like it kind of goes hand in hand. But
is that on the business card?
It
Dr.
was
Wes Hendricks,
kind of good at CrossFit. That's a lot of words for a
It should
business.
be.
But like it was kind of like it was kind of a selling point more or less, and it was kind of my identity. And back when it was something I was still passionate about, if I hurt myself, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. But now I had hurt myself doing something that I wasn't passionate about anymore. And that's what got me. Like, if I was still all in on this thing, I would have been like, okay, I'm hurt. How am I going to train around this injury? But it was like, I'm hurt. I enjoy training, but this isn't who I am anymore. What am I doing now? And one of the things I watched a lot on YouTube was this guy.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So you obviously weren't into it regardless of the injury. What else about it was turning you off?
Maybe it's just I wasn't, like when I first started CrossFit, we're talking 2008, 2009.
Grassroots.
Yeah, grassroots. Like, and I was like, in quotations with my hands here, good at it. But that's because, it was still new. You didn't have as many talented people, bigger people, stronger people coming in on it. So it was just kind of, the rule of numbers there. I was good because there weren't a lot of people doing it. Then as it started to grow and get a little bigger, Reebok took it on. So I think that had something to do with it. Honestly, doing it for 10 plus years, it starts to wear on you. Now I'm a working professional, or as much as a professional can be, and I'm trying to maintain a full-time job and maintain this high level of training volume.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do an hour and a half of strenuous lifting, shower, and then go see patients where you have to be like, taking detailed histories, performing an exam. So it started to wear on me, and it was just exhausting, and it just didn't feel, I don't want to use the word healthy or the term healthy, because that could be, that's very ambiguous and open to interpretation, but it just didn't seem to align with, who I was anymore, I guess.
Cool. So you've had the injury, you kind of had that realization as well. Now you're obviously, I know what happens next year, making this transition to a different type of practice.
Yeah.
So
I spent
talk about the beginning there. I'm sure there were struggles in the beginning, as everyone has. How did that start off?
So I started watching a lot of YouTube, and I had met this guy. So when I did CrossFit, and I went to chiropractic school in Portland, Oregon, I trained at this gym, CrossFit Portland. The owner of CrossFit Portland had this guy come out to his gym. He stayed at his house for a few days and taught a private seminar to like 5-6 members of the gym. And my friend was like, hey, you should come take the seminar. It's going to be a small group of us. And I was like, no, like I got to train my CrossFit. I don't have time for this in chiropractic school. What you're doing is kind of weird anyway. The guy that ended up coming out to his gym and stay at his house, you might have heard of him. His name's Ido Portal.
I've heard of him, yeah.
Yeah. So literally Ido came out so this is before anyone knew who Ido was. Ido came out, stayed at my buddy's house, taught a seminar to like 5 people and was there for like a week. Now I'm definitely not interested in his stuff as much because it's gone in a different direction. But back then, definitely a regret that I didn't take this.
Yeah, regret.
That's amazing. But anyway, so I knew who this Ido guy was. So I started looking, watching a bunch of his YouTube videos. I was like, damn, this is kind of interesting. This is kind of cool. This seems like something I can get into. This looks like an interesting process. So I started doing some, research on it. Like, what does this coaching look like? Who else out there offers, coaching like this? So through my research, I had a friend that also used to do CrossFit, had basically experienced something very similar to myself, and had been working with Ito through his online programming for, a few years now. So I reached out to him to ask him his experience on it. And then he was the first person that actually provided me with programming. The programming I actually ended up giving you eventually.
Sweet.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got into it. That was my entry into it.
That's awesome. So you're just starting this. What was your? There's probably a few, but what were some of the first because I know this probably happened with me as well. What were the oh my god, holy shit, I suck at this stuff. Like
everything.
Okay. Did you think going in I'm going to be pretty good at X and X?
Well, it was funny
I'll
because
at least be okay at something.
I remember. So we're right now in what year?
2021.
So yeah, this was probably 2016 maybe. That's when I got on board with him. Maybe earlier, 2015, whenever it was. I remember when we started talking about programming. He's like, "What are your goals?" And I was like, "Okay." I really had no idea. So I was like, I think in 6 months to a year, I could get, a freestanding handstand push-up. I was like, it'd be cool if I could still front squat a decent amount of weight. And then how about a 360 pull-up? That looks cool. I could do that in 6 months.
Is that a one-arm pull?
So the 360 pull-up is the one, where the 360 pull is the front lever.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah.
So yeah, I still don't have that. Haven't spent much time on it, but still don't have it. But yeah, those were my goals going in. So the biggest takeaway was how far away I was from my goals, because I didn't meet as many of I was so weak or didn't have so many prerequisites that the barrier to entry was so high, and I was so far away from these goals. It was crazy.
That's probably what you just described is what I think is so cool about kind of what's, not to brag on ourselves, but the practices we have. It's what we're shooting for isn't all right, I want to bench 50 more pounds. It's not the same movement, but just more weight. It's a more advanced version, and it's just, to me, it's just so cool to advance what your body's capable of. It's not you're just doing the same movement pattern, just with more of a load, or maybe a greater range of motion. It's you're doing an advanced variation, and it's just so rewarding. So what was your first because it sounds like early on you're like, oh my god, I suck at this stuff, which everyone feels like that.
I still feel like that today, so it's fun.
That's good, yeah, and keeps you humble and keeps you striving to be better and better. So awesome mindset to have. But what was the first kind of thing you were making progress on? We were like, all right, hell yeah, I'm getting there, or I'm clearly seeing something good's happening here.
So probably I'd say it's either the hand balancing or the planche or planche work. I'm just natural.
What about the hand balancing? More time? Or?
Yeah, just more. I was doing a lot of chest to wall holds, a lot of the body line drills. We were doing I was spending a lot of time on those individual pieces of the handstand work, as opposed to what most people do of just kicking up into a handstand. And it was seeming to pay off. I'd always wanted to do a handstand all my life, but just never been able to accomplish it. And within the first 3-4 months, I was kicking up and, holding 5, 10, 50. I was seeing, I don't want to say immediate progress, but I was seeing the work that I was putting in was showing minor result. It was showing enough to keep me interested to continue on, to be like, whoa, if I get this handstand, that's the gateway into the handstand push-up, which is in some, so I was seeing mediocre gains there.
I can remember, now that you mentioned that reminds me of a personal experience. I can remember getting so amped for whatever the program you sent me was, on the handstand heel pulls on the walls. Yeah. Nailing whatever the prescribed amount was for the first time. It was probably 5 reps for 4 or 5 sets, and I nailed. I was just getting so amped about that. So, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this that have been on the handstand journey can totally relate. Like there's so many little milestones within that.
Yeah, it kept me interested.
The beginning of that, it's so many stepping stones within that journey. It's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely it made me feel, I kind of got some of that initial positive feedback that continued to push me further. So probably the handstand work and then the planche work, because a lot of the times those can kind of relate, because you're, especially for the beginner, the protraction strength,
straight arm,
the mobility requirements and the wrist, because coming in with no mobility practice at all prior to this, like the whole wrist routine, all the wrist work was a huge opener or eye opener for me. So it was nice to see some progress there.
So the handstand and the planche, I can definitely see where making a little bit of progress in that is noticeable and obviously rewarding. What was, as you started, let's say you kind of mentioned 3-4 months in, let's say you're 6 months, now let's say a year in, what are you now thinking is possible as goals? Because you mentioned that you had these, what you soon realized were probably unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do. So you're a year in, pretty moderately experienced, we'll say. What are you now thinking as goals coming up in the future?
So I think by this point in time, a year in, I think I just hit like a 60-second handstand, maybe a freestanding handstand push-up. I'm starting to think maybe a one-arm chin-up is possible, maybe a full range of motion chest-to-deck handstand push-up. I think maybe within 18 months, I was doing straddle planche, like a very crappy pike tip straddle planche, because also there's levels to this. Can you do a freestanding handstand push-up? Yes. What does it look like? How efficient is it? Like, are you protracting your scapula? Do you have a nice line where your feet are going behind you? Are you pushing from the scapula? Or is it like, did I lower down? Did my scapula jam together? Is my back banana? So like...
I think a lot of, well, just jump in real quick. I think a lot of people use the term like checking the boxes.
Yeah.
And it's like you could say, yeah, I got a handstand push-up. And it's like, well, it was absolute shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you really check the box, or is it like you obviously wanted to clean it up? It sounds like. So what are and you were hitting that stuff at least sloppily. Like, are you okay with that? Or are you like, oh my gosh, I need to clean this up? Like, what is your thought process as you're starting to acquire some things?
Well, it's funny. The more you learn, or the deeper down the rabbit hole you go, it's ever evolving, or it's ever changing. Or like when I used to first see a freestanding handstand push-up, or even honestly, like one of the Ito videos I saw years ago where he's doing full range of motion handstand push-ups, and his chest is going to the edge of a bench. I look at that one now and I'm just like, I wouldn't want to see your lower back as extended, or your scapula is retracted. I'd want to see more protraction. But it's the deeper you go down kind of the rabbit hole and the more you learn about it and how you refine the process, and then you start to see people that are maybe more experienced with handstand push-ups, or they specialize in that, or maybe people that are more experienced in lever work, and you start seeing all these, what's the word I'm looking for? You see all these specialists doing it, and you're like, oh, this is what's capable of, and you start to learn more, and then you go back and look at your previous things, and what you thought was awesome at the time was absolute garbage. Like when I first did the handstand push-up, I was like, oh, this isn't bad. But now I look at that, I was like, oh my God.
I think when we connected, it was probably right around that time, I think, when you were probably just first getting those things.
Uh-huh.
But I think, so as Wes mentioned in, I think our first episode, we connected because we were both affiliated with functional range conditioning. And he sent me a message on Instagram because we live close by, Charleston for Wes, Savannah for myself. And I was looking at his page, and I remember being like, oh my God.
But if we were to look at that same
shit,
now.
Like thinking that shit was amazing. And honestly, some of it's probably, for me still, because I struggle with strength stuff, still to this day, is I would love to be at that level. So it's all your perspective on things. But.
Well, absolutely. And I think that's what keeps it interesting and keeps it exciting and keeps me engaged in the process, because you can always refine stuff, and it's just fun. is there any point to refining it? Am I going to be a better human being? Probably not. But I just enjoy it. It's a great way to pass time, really. I get fulfillment out of cleaning the things up and finding the intricacies of it and kind of, filming it and being like, okay, I thought in my head if I did this, it would produce this result. I was wrong. What do I need to change now? And like then looking at it like, okay, maybe I just need to get freaking stronger. So then, I'll go through a strength. Like trying to figure out the process or reverse engineer it is what gets me excited and keeps me interested in it.
The two steps forward, one step back. Eventually, you're making progress, and
yeah, exactly. Maybe it's more like what'd you say? 2 steps forward. It's probably like back. 2 steps forward or 2 steps backwards, 1 step forward. It feels like most of the time.
Yeah. But every now and then you take a giant leap and it's 5 steps forward.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what really keeps you excited.
You're making progress. So
yeah, absolutely.
So what are your goals now? I know you're definitely you've hit the 1-arm chin. You're hitting a lot of reps on handstand push-ups. I know you're making some gains in lower body as well. What are some long-term goals now?
Let's see. So handstand push-ups, probably in the last year and a half now, I've been really interested in handstand push-ups and parallel bars. I've been doing handstand push-ups all my life. All my time in this type of training, I've always done them on my hands. And when I started researching handstand push-up work more, a lot of the people I started following were doing it on parallettes. And I was like, oh, that seems kind of cool. And I remember trying it a couple times. Like I could do chest to deck handstand push-ups. So I was like, why can't I do full range of motion on the P-bars? And I just thought I could do it. And it was literally like I'd never done a handstand push-up before. It was just so vast. It was so different. It was mind-blowing. So for the last year and a half, I've worked on, refining my technique on what a single rep looks like, then building consistency on that single rep. And now I'm working towards consistent triple full range of motion P-bar handstand push-ups, working on double 1-arm chin-ups. I want to, either double 1-arm chin-ups or make the 1-arm chin-up more available. Because like every time you've seen me hit a 1-arm chin-up, it's been after a deload and kind of like I've kind of planned the cycle accordingly to be able to peak to achieve this.
It's like you're a power lifter at a powerlifting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're peaking physically, yeah.
So I want to see if I can make it more accessible to myself. So those are my 2 big strength goals for the upper and lower body, or the upper body are pushing and pulling right there. For the lower body, I'm working towards middle splits. I'm finally putting in the time for that. I've definitely avoided, like I've always done mobility work, but I've just never approached it with the intensity or the focus that I should, because I enjoy strength work so much, or because I've seen more progress in strength work. So middle splits. And then also I'm working on building back up to a double body weight back squat.
Nice. Where are you on the back squat, if you don't mind me asking?
So last time I checked, so I'm pretty conservative in how I do it. So right now I don't want to do heavy singles. So right now I'm at 265 pounds, I want to say, for a set of 5. I don't know what that relates to on the continuum. Ideally, I want to be at a 315 back squat for 1 rep. There's different 1 rep max calculators that would tell me I'm fairly close. I don't want to have too much false security by believing them until I actually do it.
Yeah, you gotta hit it.
You gotta hit it. But I've been training at a much higher rep range as opposed to chipping away at the lower reps, because for me, I just don't recover well from that.
Nice. So you professionally, you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, would you describe yourself as you're an online personal trainer essentially, right?
That's 100% what I am right now. Yeah, I am.
So no more chiropractic work in person, just solely online personal training?
Yeah. That's all I do. So probably like 3 years ago, I moved to Charleston from Boston. And I when I moved there, I had every intention of starting a practice, and I did. I was seeing patients for a little while. And just, before I was talking about how cool all the people were in Boston, people in Charleston just don't seem to care about their health as much as people in Boston do.
That's the South for you. I've lived here the majority of my life, so it's
It's
a tough market.
It really wore on me caring about people's health more than they care about it. On top of dealing with insurance. Maybe I wasn't passionate about it, so I couldn't fight through it. Maybe it just wasn't my true passion. Who knows? But I just, at the same time of trying to do that, I organically had people starting to reach out to me for programming, and it just continued to grow. Fortunately, some of the people that reached out to me in the early stages, were yourself. I had a couple previous CrossFit Games athletes that reached out to me. I had Anthony Gustin, who owns a host of supplement companies, very popular podcast, wrote a book. And I was doing all this for free just because I was passionate about it and I wanted to help people out. And then these people, because, yourself, all them have a large audience, people started reaching out to them being like, hey, can you program? And all the time, you guys would always be like, hey, I don't do this. Talk to Dr. Wes, So I had this influx pretty quickly of people reaching out to me organically wanting programming. And before I knew it, the amount of time in my day to even dedicate towards patients was very limited. And I probably closed up shop 8 months before COVID happened.
Chiro?
Yeah, Chiro. I just called it, I was just so busy with people on a regular basis that I wanted to kind of go, I don't want to use the term all in, but I wanted to commit to it. I didn't want it to be the side hustle. I wanted to see what I could make of it while the demand was there. And I enjoy it too. I'm really passionate about it.
It's like you just described it. You were the in-person people from the chiropractic standpoint were less interested than this online clientele who clearly was they sought you out. You weren't just like, oh, this is the chiropractor. It sounds like to me at least. This is the guy who's the closest to my house. Let me hit him up.
Yeah, kind of. Or he's in my network or something like that. And it's just like we already said, I'm not the motivational. I'm not going to.
You're not the cheerleader.
If you want to get yourself better, I'm going to get you there. But if you're coming in and you're not sure if you want to get better or if you want to have
half-assing any sort of drill,
or if you want to have a narrative like I have a bad back because it runs in my family or something, I'm not the chiropractor for you. And maybe that's why I was a bad chiropractor. Or I wasn't successful in my new demographic or my new market or my new region or whatever. Maybe I just wasn't as passionate about it as training with people too. But the demand was so high for remote clients. I decided to go with it.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, we're going to dive into some questions I got on Instagram here
All right.
a few minutes ago. But I have one. What is some advice you would give to, let's say it's a chiropractic student who's either really interested in chiropractics and might apply to school, or maybe he's in school now. What would be some advice to them?
Oh, wow. It's funny. I always talk because I actually have.
Well, let me add maybe a piece to that.
Okay.
Go with the question is, or maybe someone who is considering chiropractic work as a possible modality to fix an issue they have.
Ooh, I feel like that's. So
two separate questions?
I think that's two separate questions.
Okay, well, answer the first one. The student who is interested in the field, what's some advice for them?
So I would, I always get asked this all the time. You don't even practice. My dad's like, you went to school for how long and you're not even treating people? And luckily he gives me a break when, we talk about
Well, he didn't pay for it, so.
No, he didn't. So, so that's another thing. But it's okay because it's fine. I'm able to support myself.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to. I tell people this all the time. I went to graduate school for not quite what Wes probably paid or the time commitment, but for a Master's of Science in Sports Medicine. And I tell people that was not nearly as valuable as stuff just I've learned on my own and doing the certifications and learning from people online. So I can totally relate, but I almost needed to do that to realize I can find better stuff out there.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a piece to that. For me, I'm always asked, would you still, if you knew to this day you were not even going to be treating people, would you still go to chiropractic school? And I'd say absolutely in a heartbeat, because the confidence I have to work with someone that's injured, the knowledge that I have, the ability just to gather information and figure out what's useful and what's a waste of my freaking time just through all the studying I had to do, I would do it again in a heartbeat. So, and that I feel like that also separates me from a lot of Instagram influencers out there, which sounds a little ridiculous, but I would do it.
The doctor on the username does look cool.
Yeah, I'd like to tell myself that. But yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. But in terms of what I would tell a student, or even what I'd tell myself if I was to go back and do chiropractic school again, and it's weird because this is just school in general. I was always studying or trying to absorb the information from what is going to be on the test. I need to pass the test, which doesn't really lend itself to, and this is a whole discussion on learning, it just doesn't lend itself to, retaining information, because I'm just trying to absorb facts. What are they going to ask for a test? Like, I would love to go back and take my anatomy dissecting lab again, or go back to histology again, and learn it from a standpoint of knowing what I know now, and not having any of this stress of, oh my God, what's going to be on
this? Not reading everything in the textbook.
Yeah, exactly. Or like not worrying about a test question. Like, how are you going to ask this test question?
Yeah.
So all of that, so if I could absorb the information like that, so that's what I'd tell a student. I don't even know how I'd tell that to another person, but take it for what it is.
Well, sorry, I tried to pile on those questions, but the other question is, let's say some person has a back issue, or maybe it's some other issue where they think, a chiropractor would help me. What would be, maybe to get the most out of that session, some questions to ask, or someone, if they're researching on Google or something to look for to find, because you sound like I know you sound like I know this. You're much more knowledgeable than the average chiropractor. You're much more invested in a healthy, very holistic, healthy lifestyle. Like, what would be, if someone is like, I think a chiropractor would help me, what would be something they would look for, or questions they would ask? Yeah.
So honestly, the best place to start is talk to people that have experienced the same thing. Because honestly, like, a referral from a family member or friend is always a good place to start. I think it's better than, trying to Google, or trying to Google nearest chiropractor, or checking out who's within my network. So always start with talking to friends, talking to family, because you can get a lot of honest opinions from there. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but go check out their Instagram. What are they posting about on Instagram? Obviously you can really finagle that, or it's just a little snapshot in time, but it gives you an idea. You could learn a lot about a person through their social media. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't do a good job posting on social media. But you can kind of get an idea of maybe what they value, or how they approach their training, approach working with clients, if they're active on it. It's definitely a disadvantage to them if they're not utilizing that platform. But that's a great place to start to learn more about them.
Cool. I like that. So I'm going to dive into a few IG questions we got.
Yeah, let's hear them.
So the first one from Demetris Martinstide. Sorry, I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. It's, what sources / books does he use for his coaching? So I think sources could be, that could mean to be coaches you've had, certifications you've been to, obviously anything like that, and books are obviously books. We know what those are.
So let's start with kind of what I'm basing most of my information off of now. Very similar to yourself, where you said you've done a lot with Joachim. I've done a lot with Devin Kelly over the past almost 2 years now, I'm going to say. He's got a slightly different approach to how most people approach calisthenics. I've had great success with it. I've utilized a lot of his methods with my clients, had huge success with them as well. So definitely Devin's kind of top one right there, learning through people that are more knowledgeable, more experienced than yourself. So he was a big one for me. Like you kind of mentioned, FRC and their whole system, because they just lay it out very nicely. So definitely, if you're a coach, I have nothing but good things to say about it. As we were botching we were kind of...
I think they make it very definable for even a non-trainer to
absolutely, and they put standards on
it.
things.
Like it's
then again, it just really matters how far or extreme you take it.
Yeah.
Outside of him, we went to Simon Alta's seminar. I've purchased a few programs from him to learn through doing. Then another one is, I don't know his name. His Instagram handle is Fitness Facts, Fitness FAQ. Daniel something, but he's a physical therapist like Simon as well. I've learned a lot through the material he puts out. So those would be my top 3 people. Outside of that, it was really my experience working as a chiropractor, because I started in a hospital and then working in a CrossFit gym. Just all those people I treated over the years through, I hate to say it, trial and error, more or less, was a huge learning opportunity. And then books, people love books, so I'm going to cite Super Training, which I regularly revisit on a regular basis, and Overcoming Gravity's got some good nuggets in there as well.
Cool, I like that. So Timothy.Lira asks, what is your biggest movement challenge currently and why?
Ooh, definitely getting the middle splits. It's, mobility's just, I don't want to say not my thing, because I might as well just say I'm just not flexible, I'm just not flexible. Strength work has always maybe come easier to me. Strength work's always come easier to me, so it's more enjoyable. But this year I really want to, and I've always had above average mobility, but, I really want to start taking my mobility work to the next level that I think is in line with my strength work. And it may require a little more time, dedication, or maybe even humility to working on it, because I'm not working at as advanced progressions as my strength work.
Cool. I like that. So I think I might wrap it up. Is there anything you kind of want to leave the audience with? Is there any sort of lesson you've learned over since your back injury with CrossFit, and now you've kind of transitioned to this practice? Is there anything? Oh yeah, leave us with like maybe 2 or 3 nuggets of like what are some like things you've learned that would be ideal for the audience to know if they're jumping into this and that sort of thing.
Consistency is key. We were talking right before the podcast, or maybe during one of our intermissions here, how like when we first started training, what we were doing was absolutely ridiculous, but we still made progress. Like the worst program in the world, if you're going to follow it consistently, assuming you don't get hurt or something, you're still going to make progress. So just do something and do it consistently. Like set a goal of like, I'm going to, for me, do my middle split work once a week. I don't want to do it twice a week. We talked about that. But be consistent with it over a long period of time, and you're going to see results. Are you going to see results in a month? Probably not. Maybe like little nuggets here or there. Sometimes not even 3 months. I hate to be kind of negative, but
sometimes progress though is after a month of chest to wall holds, you're like, oh hell yeah, I hit 2 for 45 seconds instead of 2 for 35 seconds. Like that's
absolutely
that's progress.
But like, are you going to like, if you can barely pull your legs apart in 3 months, are you going to have your balls to the floor for a middle split? No, but just be consistent with it. If you do those small little things every day, and that's what's going to get you towards whatever your goal is. And if it takes longer than what you set out to have it take, be thankful, because it's this goal you're working towards is exciting. Because we talked about this on one of the other episodes. When you reach the goal, it's kind of depressing because you're just on to the next one. The process is more fun, so learn to enjoy it.
You're chasing progress, and if that's your mindset that you're chasing progress, it's that's an ideal mindset to have.
Yeah, so enjoy the process. Don't rush it. Don't get discouraged if you aren't reaching your goals, because when you reach the goals, it's not that exciting. The process is way more fun, so I'd leave it at that.
Yeah, and even when you do hit those goals, chances are, as Wes said earlier, like you'll probably look back a year later and be like
I sucked.
Oh fuck, I thought I had that, but it was so
such
shitty
garbage
that you'd be like, that doesn't even count.
Doesn't even count. I didn't hit a handstand.
You would delete that Instagram video. So. All right, Wes. Well, thanks for going on your own podcast.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
I think the next couple we're going to dive into some mobility training, kind of mobility basic type stuff, like how to program things, and then also a strength podcast as well.
Yep, we'll dive deeper into kind of
Super
programming
excited.
concepts.
And anyone listening to this, I'm sure we'll mention it on both of our IGs, but if you can think of a cool topic for a podcast, I mean, feel free to message either of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as we get further along, I'm sure we'll be hurting for ideas. So
same thing with guests. If there's somebody you want to come on, let us know.
Guest ideas for topics to kind of just rant on and riff on, we'd be all for it. So please hit us up. And be looking for the next one.
Yep.